Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 Senate elections and I believe the most important race, of course, that being the state of Montana. Now, I filled out the states that I think are, pretty likely to go to each party. I think Michigan and Wisconsin are a bit of a stretch for Democrats, but if Democrats are to be competitive in the race for control of the chamber, they're going to have to win both these states and probably by decisive margins. So that leaves these five, and if Biden wins the presidency, Republicans can only afford to, or Democrats can only afford to lose one of these. And I think that most likely is going to be Texas, but maybe it's Ohio. Who knows? But for now, we'll say it's Texas, and they need to win the rest of these states. They'd probably win Nevada and Arizona. They'd probably win Ohio. And then it's Montana that's really, the tipping point here. So Montana is going to be very important to watch. I think John Tester is going to have a really, really hard time here, but he can win. And I think it'd be silly to count him out at this point in time. So we'll be looking at it just kind of a little bit of an overview, and I won't be making any firm predictions, but I'll kind of just be previewing the race and what to expect. So Tester, for those of you who don't know, is a three-term incumbent Democrat. He won in 2006, he won in 2012, and he was reelected in 2018 against Matt Rosendale, who is running again and will potentially be the GOP opponent for him again. And in 2018, he had the advantage of running in a blue wave year. He had the advantage of running in a year where Democrats did pretty well statewide in Montana. They came, I think, within 8% of winning the congressional race, which is a pretty big overperformance from 2020, where not only did Biden lose by 16, but Democrats lost the congressional race by, I think, 13. And then, 2024, I think it could easily be a bluer year than 2020, maybe. No firm predictions on that yet, but it's not going to be as blue of a year as 2018. I can almost guarantee you that. So, definitely, there are definitely, I would say, things that are going to get worse for Tester, but he also has some advantages. So the first thing I would like to remind people is that he is a very, very well-liked senator. He's a Democrat in Montana. He's almost a party line vote for Democrats. He is among, from a pure voting record standpoint, he's a pretty generic Democrat. Now, in politics, as I always say, perception is what matters. It doesn't matter what you're actually doing is if you've got people convinced you're doing something else. And Tester has a moderate reputation. He's, well liked by Democrats, independents, and a good amount of Republicans in Montana. And that's why, despite being in a state that, again, is pretty Republican federally, he has a 58% approval rating and just a 34% disapproval rating. That's really high. That's a really good, margin for a Democrat like John Tester in a state as Republican leading as Montana is. So he, I would definitely say, is a good branding politician. I think he has appeal to a lot of people that would otherwise not be interested in voting for Democrats. So that is one thing that's going for him. He also has money. He's an incumbent. He knows how to raise money. I think he raised $5 million last quarter. He has a big war chest. And I think Republicans quietly don't feel great about this race. Their two candidates are Matt Rosendale and Tim Sheehy. Rosendale in 2018, and like I said, he lost this race to Tester. Of course, didn't lose by a ton, only 3.5%, but still a decent margin. And again, losing as a Republican in Montana is never, can never really be labeled as a good thing. But what I will say is that Rosendale, I think, has the potential to run a good campaign. I don't think he will, but I think he's maybe a little better than people give him credit for. And then in, the other option for Republicans is Tim Sheehy, who was a former, I believe, U.S. Air Force pilot, and he's got some baggage of his own. Tim Sheehy has some, inappropriate Instagram posts from his college days. Obviously, I'd be lying if I said that, if I were to pretend like no one has done anything stupid in college, I would be lying. But I believe that he's not that great of a candidate solely because he's not a politician. Again, running non-politicians can be very good. It's, can be, has a lot of upside. But just as Blake Masters, Herschel Walker, and Dr. Oz, there are a lot of scandals and politically inept moves made earlier in your life. Because if you want a politician who's been serving for 20 years, they are very careful with their words. Dr. Oz was not. Herschel Walker was definitely not. And Blake Masters, not really either. So, ultimately, I would say since he's not been a politician for too long, since he's kind of a newcomer to the political scene, I think if you dig back, into years and decades past, there'll be a lot of stuff for Tester to capitalize on in the general election campaign. So I would definitely believe that Rosendale and Sheehy would both be pretty subpar opponents for Tester. I think Republicans in Montana really would have liked to recruit someone else, maybe like a less offensive statewide official, like I don't even know who the Secretary of State or the Attorney General is at this point, but anyone like that. And there's definitely, I would say, a lot of, just generally speaking, there are a lot of good alternatives for Republicans in a state like Montana, which they've governed for the past 3 years and have won some elections in recently. Rosendale and Sheehy are not their best candidates, but regardless, it's going to be one of them. So that's a bit of a help to Tester. And so since he's already a popular incumbent, since he's already got a big war chest, I think that gives him a chance. But, of course, he's running in a red state. Joe Biden, like I said, he lost it by 16 in 2020. Who knows, who's to say how much he's going to lose it by this time? Maybe by a little less, maybe by 14 instead of 16. But that's still a pretty big margin for Tester to overcome. So Republicans not running great campaigns. They don't really have great candidates. I don't think they're going to really be able to compete with Tester on the airwaves. But Donald Trump is going to be a huge help to them here. He's going to do really well in these rural areas. If you look at the turnout from these counties, just go to any rural county in Montana, turnout's going to be huge there for Trump, the way it was not for Republicans in 2018. And again, Tester running in a presidential year is really hurtful to him because he was running in midterm. He could capitalize off differential turnout, rural areas potentially declining in turnout, Biden not being on the ballot to drag Democrats down across red states. And so that is really going to hurt him. Now, of course, he's a good performer. If you compare his performances to Biden in blue areas like Missoula, this is the most liberal part of Montana. Tester won Missoula by 37 points in 2018. Biden won it by 24 in 2020. Biden actually lost Lake County. Tester won it by a little bit. So that's just an example of a more progressive area. You go to, I believe, Lewis and Clark County. That's where Helena is. Tester won it by 18. Biden lost it by 4. And then you go to the rural areas, right? Like Roosevelt County, kind of a bellwether nationwide. It's in Montana, not too big of a county, but it's always interesting to watch how it votes. Biden lost it by 2, but Tester won it easily, got 58% of the vote there. So in rural areas, urban areas, swing areas, Tester's always doing well, always outperforming Biden. But again, we're going to have to see how much he can, really hold that up in a presidential year, in a year where Trump's going to be on the ballot, in a year where Republicans are going to tie themselves to Trump in states like Montana. So it's kind of a battle of candidate quality versus just statewide trends. Montana itself, federally, Republican identity. But Tester is well-liked. He's not fallen in approval yet. And unless the average Montanan's view of him changes between now and November 2024, he will be competitive in this race. And so for that reason, I think this is the most interesting race. I think it's the most competitive race of 2024, in the Senate at least. And I'm going to be interested to watch how it unfolds. So that's, I guess, kind of your comprehensive preview of Tester versus whether it be Rosendale or Sheehy, but that's where I stand on the Senate right now. So if Democrats win this seat and they, hold on to these two, they have to take one of Texas and Ohio, and they're in a much better position. They're almost at 50-50 odds if they win these 3 seats. So the battle for control, Montana is a huge state to start. So thanks for watching. Again, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you all in the next one.